What's up, y'all? How you guys doing? I hope everyone's doing well. Today's post is going to be about family, right? I thought it was important for me to make this video before the holidays start up because I know there has been spaces in the spiritual community in which the message has been that once you gain a certain level of consciousness, that the family in which you were born in serves no purpose and that you be following your soul family. All right. My particular walk challenges that idea mainly because your blood relatives are a direct reflection about what your soul has come from. Okay. So today I'm going to be pausing the video because I have quite a few notes here in my book. All right. So I just want to make sure that the message comes across very clear, very concise, and why it is that your family is actually a big trial for you to get to your next conscious level of consciousness. Okay, your next evolution. All right, by facing and recognizing and learning from your past. Okay. All right. So when you look in the mirror, you're going to see a lot of generational gifts that were passed on onto you, as well as what we call generational curses. What does that mean? It means thought forms and states of consciousness that are outdated. They don't actually serve you. Sometimes they're planted with the intention to protect you. Okay, but it may have been formed in an unknowledgeable conscious state. Okay, or a conscious state that is lacking. All right. And so as you are growing and becoming your own universe of consciousness, or your own collection of consciousness that makes up your being, you get to challenge old thought forms that were once planted by your family members, those who had first access in order to shape and mold the person that you are today. Okay. Now I wrote down first here, and this was a channel, by the way, so that's why my notes, they're plentiful. But when I get into the mode of channeling a message, I usually just go. I give myself enough room to flow because I know it all ties in somehow. Okay. But the first note here, it says, "What lays dormant dies." What lays dormant dies. Okay. Not expecting to change them, but choose for yourself. Okay. So if you're given something and you do not use it, it will fade away. Okay, so that is the whole concept of what I'm saying to you right now, is that certain things that were passed down to you by your family can be gifts, something that you're actually going to be utilizing. And if you don't use something, then it will lay dormant and it will die. Okay, which is not necessarily a bad thing, right? Evolution requires certain parts of you in order to be put to bed, to rest, in order for a new version of you to evolve. Okay, and to spring forth and to be animated. Okay, this includes old thought forms and old ways of thinking. There's certain spirits that are tied to you by blood. This is why a lot of this spiritual journey stuff, you have to go inward. And for you to go inward, you're going to be faced with genetic disposition, things that your great, 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 great grandfather had to overcome. It's laying dormant within inside of you, and it can be awakened given certain conditions. Okay, but if your reality or your environment don't call for that strand of consciousness to be awakened and embodied in you, it will lay dormant and go and die. Okay, which is not, again, not necessarily a bad thing. Okay, but you also have to be able to receive the gifts. You also have to be able to receive the gifts. Now, when it comes to family, you have to be able to take the good and the bad. Okay, I do not recommend just, as we are evolving and things might come very contrasting. There may be a lot of I'm going to say fights or contrasting behavior between you and your family. I don't recommend just flying away and never coming back. Okay, one of the true tests of your evolution is being amongst the consciousness that you overcame and still standing your own. Okay, not running away from. Okay, so you have to be able to receive the gifts, and you have to be able to adjust and break and amend the curses. Okay, providing the antidote where necessary. All right. One of the I guess this is from a biblical standpoint or a Christian standpoint, where it's like God gave his only begotten son. Okay. Um, the whole point of, I think, that scripture is that ultimate love, right? You're going to give your children to the world. This is really for the parental fingers out there. Okay, you give your child to the world, not your own selfish desires. Okay, we're not entitled to the soul journeys of anybody that we help create. Okay, you have to be open to receive messages and wisdom. Okay, humility to see the truth and to choose wisdom wisely. Okay, if you're listening to this, contradictions will keep you stuck. So revisit those subject areas and choose wisely. When you go back to your family, right? Let's say you develop a new sense of consciousness and you're testing it out on your past, the past ways of thinking and being, right? You get to choose which consciousness are actually helping you be your best possible self, and which consciousness are keeping you delayed and stuck into a loop. Okay, that you're not enjoying. Okay, or causing more conflicting frequencies. Okay, there's a point where you have to really commit to your best possible timeline and your best possible self, right? You got to ground back into the consciousness of your divine assignment. Okay, and then everything kind of falls into place. When you visit your family, you're then revisiting thought forms you had about those you were close to. When we're younger, we oftentimes look at things in an immature way of seeing things, right? We're immature physically, we're immature spiritually, and we're immature emotionally. All right, so we created certain narratives in our minds, not saying they're wrong or right. It's not about being wrong or right. We create certain narratives in our mind that we hold to be true. So as years go by and we keep circling the momentum of that, that's the thing that we're going to see in our reality over and over. Okay, those are the loops. So if you're saying that my my sister loves me, yet my sister does things that's contrary to the love, how I receive love or perceive love, then that's a conflict, right? That's a contradiction. So you guys might end up having the same kind of issues over and over until we decide to break the cycle with clear communication and forgiveness. And forgiveness has to do with you showing up, okay? One, taking accountability for their previous actions, and then choosing to create a different pattern of interaction. Okay, so that's the change part. Okay, God creates opportunities for you to rewire and validate new thought forms through interactions and experiences. That is the best part of this human part that we're experiencing. Okay, we could intellectualize this all we want, we could fully understand all those things, but there's a part of actually embodiment that's important. And the best way you can do that is by revisiting old thought forms that are being embodied by your family members and seeing if it stands true for you. Okay, you first must plant a new seed of experiences. Forgive. Provide yourself with the antidote of the trauma. If you guys are experiencing any kind of trauma, you have to be able to find that healing. Don't worry. Like I said, God provides the opportunities for you to clear that stuff out. My whole point of making this video is letting you know when you pass a certain level of spiritual consciousness and knowledge and wisdom, embodied knowledge, revisiting your family is actually a very positive thing. Okay, allow the possibilities for a new mindset to be planted and reinforced. Okay, after you tell yourself a certain narrative for years, sometimes decades in some people's cases, right? You're going to have to slow things down and allow that new seed to be planted and to be watered for you to see a different reality projected onto your family. Okay, your brain then is rewired for a new validating experiences to be repeated, breaking the chain of generational curses and wiring positive connections. Sorry, sometimes when I channel it's really hard. My writing gets a little sloppy. Okay, this process requires courage. It requires a blank state of thought, regardless of what the past has shown you, because you are now at a new level of consciousness, one in which you create your reality. You have authority over your perception, over your energy. You can create boundaries that contradict your principles and redirect your attention to planting and watering the seeds you want to see bear fruit. Okay, now this doesn't mean that you just go in and just like la 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 following whatever. No, you have to know who you are in every given situation. And if you could do that with your family, my dear, you can do it with anyone. Okay, you can do it with anyone. All right, those that are close to us have the access and the capability of hurting us the most. Shout out to one of my elders. Thank you for that line. Okay. And it's not a threat to you, right? Because we are not victims. Okay. We are here to overcome. So, with that being stated, you want to be exposed to it to make sure that you are solid. That's where that confidence is coming from. Okay. By facing certain things that you deemed in your perception to be traumatizing. All right. So, the next couple sections, let me just pause just to get an overview. All right, so that was my take on family stuff, right? In the spiritual community, like I said, it's not just about, divorcing your family and then only linking up with like-minded individuals, okay? Because the past is always there, okay? It helped form you. Okay, so even when you're meeting other individuals, certain spirits are going to remind you of your family because you still have to resolve those things that help make you who you are. Okay? So be grounded. You have to really be grounded in your meditation. Don't divorce yourself in order to people please or be amongst your family. You have to stand true and still be amongst your family. Do you understand? Because I have this saying that came to me the other day. It's the concept of when the leaves fall, they nurture the root. They provide nourishment for the root. Okay? Your family tree, right? Whether you're a branch, whether you're a leaf, there's a season in which you will fall, which you then have to come back and nurture the root, provide nutrition for the root. Okay, remember, each one of your family members come from a different state of time, a different state of consciousness, a different state of perception. Okay, so with that being said, if you have gone forth and evolved to a certain point, it is beneficial for you and your bloodline to be exposed to one another. This way you can gain wisdom and for them to also gain wisdom, right? Not because you're trying to change anyone's mind or them trying to convert you into anything, but because you're embodying something that they may require for their own soul journey. Just your presence is a gift. We don't have to get into any intellectual conversations. It's not even something that you have to debate. Just being around you in your new state of consciousness, your new frequency energy signature is enough for people to watch and to learn. The same thing when it comes to children. Children tend to respect more what you do than what you say. Okay? So if you gained knowledge and you're embodying a certain level of consciousness, just you being around your family can be beneficial for their own soul journey. Before we came here, we selected which families we're going to come from. Okay? We operated on a certain level of consciousness when that seed, that spiritual seed was planted into your mother's womb that became physical. Okay? For your life to be born. Okay? So with that being said, you get to choose which part of your genetic material you want to ignite and which parts of the genetic material you want to lay dormant. Okay? So if my family particularly are meat eaters. Okay? It's not something I condemn, but I've chosen right now not to eat meat. Okay? So what does that mean? It means that is part of my genetic coding, meaning that I've learned that from my family, but I chose to do something else because I'm embodying a different consciousness. Okay? And it's for them to now watch and see, is this beneficial to themselves based on how I am moving, based on my being. Okay? Like I said, it has nothing to do with trying to persuade anyone. Okay. It just maybe in their season of life, maybe someone in your family is required to hear that message. Like, hey, what I stopped doing because this is my reasons for not eating meat right now because I need to embody a certain level of consciousness to accomplish these goals in my life. And everything that I consume plays a factor in that. Okay. This is why I'm feeding this spirit right now, the spirit that doesn't eat flesh. because I need that spirit to be embodied in my physical vessel. Okay, so with that being said, the fruits are always going to be the proof, right? The proof in the pudding. Okay, just your being, your conscious state. Okay, all right. So what do I have here? Set boundaries. Okay. So the next argument I was thinking about is in the spiritual community. I hear people say things like, the universe doesn't really care about morality. Okay, it's not a good or bad thing, and in a lot of ways, I can see that perception. It's absolutely correct. It's true. Your lived experience is your lived experience, but when you graduate to a certain level of consciousness, you understand that the argument I only push back a little is because whatever you do to others, you do onto yourself. Okay, you're just meeting different reflections of yourself, whether it be in the past or whether it be in the future. Okay, it's called a divine oneness thing. Okay, so whatever you do unto others, you are doing unto yourself. The top floor and perspective is the oneness of God in the present. So in your universe, however, your internal dialogue or treatment to yourself is how you treat others. Okay. However you speak to yourself is how you're going to speak onto others. However you treat yourself is how you're going to treat others. Okay. When you gain that perspective, it's really, you understand why there's like a moral code kind of built in. Okay. It's kind of the idea of why actually, I could just read this because this. All right. So every thought form has a birthright to exist. Contrast is necessary to make the picture clear for the reality you are creating. The desires of your heart are your own. As you mature, you will consciously be aware of why the 42 laws of Ma'at exist, why the 10 commandments exist, right? The reason why is because these were created as guidelines to keep you at a clear conscience, to allow your resonance with certain levels of shame or allow you to ascend from resonance of shame and guilt. Okay, so those that came before us, those in the past, they list out certain things because they understood that this was a school. Life is a school. And so when you are already doing things, when you don't have the certain level of consciousness yet, and you're just kind of doing whatever, right? Kind of like the angels that fell from heaven and they came down here and they were just killing and raping and doing all those crazy stuff until Enoch came and said, hey, y'all better stop because another consciousness is coming and they're going to be like, what the hell are y'all doing? All right. It's the same idea. Those who've come before set out certain guidelines to allow the ascension process to be a little bit easier. All right. Because before you realize that you're actually connected to your brother. So if you kill your brother, you're killing yourself. Right? If you disgrace your sister, you're disgracing yourself before you got to that level of consciousness yet. Okay? Because there's a frequency of shame and guilt that would take a little bit, it's a little harder for the children of God, right? Because you start realizing shit. All the stuff that I'm learning applies to me, right? If you don't do that part, you're spiritually bypassing a lot of stuff, right? This is where we go through the dark night of the soul, right? With things that we have done in the past, your consciousness comes back to you like, oh, you remember you did this, you remember you did that, you remember you did, you know what I'm saying? So that's why these things exist. You get to a level when you realize that. And yes, it's not truly about morality because each soul has their own journey, right? And it all comes back down to forgiveness. But at the same time, it's just to set the guidelines in order to help with that process. Okay, because once your heart starts beating and you start seeing everyone as yourself and you're not at war with yourself, it becomes a whole different thing, right? You have to go through different rites of passage according to what other things that you've, how far you've descended. Okay. Everything not made in peace will come back and you will feel what you have done to others. All of this based in truth, which is the light of God. If you block yourself off from the truth, that's when you stray from the light. You require only truth when traversing through the dark or the unknown. So no, morality is not a requirement on this plane of existence, but as you ascend and gain knowledge, understanding, you will eventually see why morality was given as a guideline to not entrap yourself or victimize yourself. Remember, it's not over until it's over. So as long as you are given divine breath, you can evolve and you can change it. Doesn't matter what pits of hell you've originated from. Okay, you can't break that cycle. Everything in this realm is a cycle. But like Enzo, the ends will never meet exactly where it started. This allows a space for divine interference, and that is always welcomed in to be embodied by selecting a different choice. Choose different, then be different. Be present so you recognize the shift. Try your best to acknowledge and embody your principles. That's how you are going to grow and create more of those experiences in your reality. Remember, you are already living your desired reality. If you're not at peace with it, check to see if you're experiencing contradictions. That's the only way. All right? That's the only way. Okay, so I made different versions of this video, mainly because as I'm talking, sometimes I usually get off into a tangent or I'm trying to give analogies that don't really make sense. Okay, but I listened to one of them and I might post the second one just to have two videos with the same message circling the internet. But that's my message. Okay, don't avoid your family. Your family is a good mirror back of how far you've come, as well as how far you more you have to go as far as learning and relearning. Okay, you can't just avoid your triggers. All right, they're going to come up in any relationship that you're in. Okay, you have to do the work within yourself to come back to what is true. All right, you have to come back with it's true. Okay, you have to get back to that inner voice, so it doesn't matter who's around you, whether it be your family, whether it be your coworkers, whether it just be yourself. Okay, all right, so get peaceful inside so that you can share that outside, no matter what room or crowd that you're in.